The silver chart is bleeding red. Headlines are calling it a sell-off, and most Western traders assume the story is simple. Risk off, yields up, metals down. But on the ground in Europe, especially Germany, the opposite trade is happening. The paper price is dipping, and the physical dip is getting bought fast. Not because people suddenly love silver again, but because a clock is ticking. German buyers are staring at what dealers call the 2026 silver tax wall, a rules change that turns today's normal coin price into tomorrow's after-tax shock. And that's why the euro dip is being vacuumed before the window shuts. Let's unpack the mechanism, because this is not a conspiracy story. It's a tax math story, and tax math creates real-world behavior. In the European Union, silver is generally treated as a taxable good, so buyers pay value-added tax, while investment gold is treated differently. For years, Germany became a major hub for retail silver because of how certain coin sales could be handled under special taxation methods used by dealers. The result was simple. Popular bullion coins could be offered with a lighter tax burden than a straight 19% added on top of the full metal value. That advantage attracted buyers from across Europe and kept German retail demand unusually strong. Now here comes the wall. Guidance from Germany's Federal Ministry of Finance has narrowed which coins can qualify for favorable treatment, pushing many common, low-premium bullion products toward the standard 19% VAT outcome unless they truly qualify as collector's items. A key point is the numismatic test. If a coin is basically just metal with a small premium, it's harder to justify special treatment. If a coin is genuinely collectible, rare, or priced far above its melt value, the treatment can differ. In practice, the direction of travel is what matters. The simpler, mass-market, legal tender bullion coin is less likely to enjoy the old advantage. And from January 1st, 2026, dealers and buyers can't lean on a broad transition comfort blanket anymore. The assessment becomes stricter and more case by case. Under the hood, this is where the old dealer playbook gets disrupted. Dealers in Europe have long used schemes like differential taxation, also called the margin scheme, where VAT is calculated on the dealer's margin in certain second-hand or qualifying situations instead of on the entire metal value. That is why one coin could be meaningfully cheaper in one country than another, even when spot was identical. But the tightening guidance has pushed the market toward a tougher test. Is the coin truly a collector's item, or is it just bullion wearing a legal tender costume? One common reference point in the rules is a high premium threshold, often discussed as the coin needing to be priced far above its melt value to count as collectible in the intended sense. In other words, the closer a coin trades to pure metal value, the more likely it drifts toward full VAT treatment. This is why buyers are targeting specific products and specific batches of inventory, not silver, in the abstract. They are buying the tax status as much as the metal. That's why the word panic is fair, but not in the way Wall Street uses it. In the West, panic looks like paper liquidation. Sell futures, reduce exposure, raise cash. In Germany and parts of Europe, panic looks like inventory removal. Take whatever qualifying stock is still available under the older, friendlier treatment, because once that stock is gone, the replacement stock reprices. The buyer's thought process is brutally rational. If the same coin costs noticeably more after the tax outcome changes, then buying today is not timing the market. It's avoiding an avoidable surcharge. Here's the simplest way to see it. Start with the same global spot price. Add the same physical premium for a minted 1-ounce coin. Now apply the local tax. A US buyer might pay spot plus a premium, maybe a couple bucks, depending on the week. A German buyer under the harsher outcome pays spot plus premium, then adds 19% VAT on top. That VAT doesn't care that the chart dipped today. It's a percentage that can erase the dip, and then some. So the euro dip that looks like a discount on a screen becomes, for the German retail buyer, a shrinking window to lock in inventory before the effective all-in price steps higher. And this is where paper and physical decouple. Paper can fall quickly because paper is liquid and leveraged. Physical can tighten at the same time because physical is finite, slow, and local. When Germany's retail market goes into buy it while it still prices like yesterday mode, the first thing that moves is not the futures chart. The first thing that moves is the premium and the lead time. Dealers show fewer in-stock items. Delivery estimates stretch. Coin premiums jump even while spot is soft. That combination feels confusing if you only watch the paper price, but it's completely consistent if you track after-tax replacement costs and the speed at which retail is draining shelves. Now zoom out to the supply chain. Retail coins don't appear out of thin air. They have to be minted, shipped, insured, allocated, and distributed. When a region suddenly increases its urgency to buy physical, it competes for a pipeline that is already constrained by fabrication capacity and logistics. So even if the global spot price is falling, the local market can experience what feels like gridlock. The available now category gets bought, and the available later category gets repriced. This is also why you'll hear buyers talk about existing stock like it's a separate asset. It is. Existing stock is metal that is already in the right place, in the right form, and in the right tax category. Once it's gone, you can't instantly replace it. Then comes the second order effect, the bonded warehouse pivot. As the standard 19% VAT outcome becomes harder to avoid for typical retail delivery, more European buyers shift from deliver to my door to store it where VAT doesn't trigger yet. That means duty-free or bonded storage, often in Switzerland or in specialized customs warehouse arrangements, where VAT is generally only due if the metal is released into domestic circulation or physically delivered. This is not a loophole fantasy. It's a legal structure that changes the buyer's decision. If paying VAT today is optional, based on storage choice, many long-term buyers choose storage first and delivery later. Why does that matter to a Western investor watching charts? Because it changes float. When metal moves into bonded storage, it's not sitting in a dealer's retail pipeline anymore. It's not the stack of coins ready to be flipped back into the market next week. It becomes privately held, longer-term inventory. That tightens the retail market, supports premiums, and can keep physical demand strong even during paper corrections. In other words, some of the selling pressure you see on screen may be paper holders exiting leverage, while some of the buying pressure you don't see is physical holders locking metal away. So what's the real takeaway? The German tax wall is a demand accelerator, not a price oracle. It doesn't guarantee higher spot tomorrow. What it does is create a forced timetable for certain buyers, and forced timetables create bursts of demand. If you want to measure that burst, don't look only at the headline spot price. Watch three indicators: the premium spread on 1-ounce coins in Europe, the speed at which popular products go out of stock, and the growth of bonded warehouse uptake. If premiums rise while spot falls, that's the decoupling. If lead times stretch, that's the bottleneck. If more buyers choose storage over delivery, that's metal being removed from circulation. Now, let's address the mental trap for Western traders. When you see silver drop, your brain says cheap, but cheap relative to what? For a German buyer, cheap relative to last month's coin price is irrelevant if next month's coin price includes a higher, unavoidable tax outcome. Their comparison is not spot to spot. Their comparison is all-in price today versus all-in price after the wall. That's why Europe can be buying hard during a paper dip, while the West is still debating whether a trend line broke. If you're holding silver, the practical move is to stop treating Europe as a footnote and start treating it as a real-time sensor. Physical markets send signals through premiums and availability, not through futures candles. A market can look weak on paper and tight in reality at the same time. And whenever you see a policy-driven timetable, you should expect front-running behavior. Buyers accelerate purchases before the rule bites. Here's a simple framework. 1. Track all-in prices, not just spot. Convert euros to dollars and separate premium from VAT. 2. Watch the spread between coin premiums and bar premiums, because tax pressure can redirect demand and distort premiums. 3. Watch immediate ship inventory versus back order times. Availability is a signal. 4. Ask your dealer one question: what's in hand today and what's on allocation? And if you use bonded storage, read the trigger. VAT is usually due when the metal leaves the warehouse for delivery. Know that switch before you flip it. Final thought: when a market is split into paper and physical, the story is never one price. It's a map of pressures. Paper trades speed and leverage. Physical trades access and inventory. Germany's 2026 tax wall is a clear example of how a local rule can create wider ripples. Not by changing spot directly, but by changing who is willing to buy, how fast, and where the metal ends up stored. Keep your eyes on the premiums, not just the chart. And as always, this is education, not personal financial advice. Make decisions based on your risk tolerance, your time horizon, and the products you can actually access.